Hello everyone, my name is Michaela, and today I'm going to be talking about courtship behavior in fiddler crabs, as well as how sexual selection shapes both the morphology and the behavior in these crabs. So to begin, we will do a brief introduction on fiddler crabs, and then straight into the components of the courtship behavior. After that, we will talk about female mate choice, and then finally the environmental and ecological factors involved in this courtship. So who are the fiddler crabs? Fiddler crabs are small intertidal crustaceans belonging to the family Oxypodidae. They are found worldwide in tropical and subtropical areas. They especially love mangroves, estuaries, and mudflats. Anywhere where there's brackish water, they especially love, and they are known for being extremely sexually dimorphic. So you can see this as in the figure on the left is a male fiddler crab, and you will see he has asymmetrical claws, one being very large and one being very small. And if you look over in the female on the right, she has two small symmetrical claws. So this is really important as the large clawed males is used in mating and defense behaviors. Also in this courtship, what will happen is females will do a burrow inspection, and this is very important as they inspect males' burrows, as this is where they will choose to mate, oviposit, and incubate their eggs. So since the basis of this presentation is based on sexual selection, I thought it'd be beneficial to briefly define two terms. One is intersexual selection, which is one sex picks a mate based on traits that they like. This is through females picking traits they like in the males, which is a variety of things. However, it's mostly based on the display, the waving display, which we'll talk about, as well as the quality of their burrows. Next, there's intrasexual selection, which is when members of the same sex compete with each other to win mates. This is through males fighting each other using their enlarged claws, or through territorial displays through their burrows. So let's talk about the components of courtship. The first thing that they do in this courtship is waving display. So you'll see the males here in this video are waving their enlarged claw. Now the rhythm, the tempo, and the duration of this waving changes with every single species. However, one thing is common, and it's the process by which it goes up, down, and around. What is really important about this is that this is known as an honest indicator of health. So what this means is that when males do this waving display, they build up lactic acid in their hemolymph, which indicates that they are doing anaerobic respiration. So what this means is that it's basically hard work. So a female will see a male doing a really intense display of this, and it means that she is fit, or he is fit. So this will indicate to her that he's a good person to fit with or to mate with, especially if he's doing a really, really good display. They will also do these displays right near their burrows. It's hard to see in this video, however, they're kind of the dots that you see in the sand. These ones are basically just holes in the sand. However, we will see now that some males will add on some extra architectural things to these burrows, and this is to aid in visual communication, help beckon a female over to inspect the burrow, but it also indicates to a female that he's extra fit. For instance, if he was able to build extra things to his burrow, it probably means that he's quite fit and able to provide for her. There's also a very wide variation among species in both the tempo of these waves, but also in the types of waves. For instance, some species will do attraction waves, which are not content-based, so they will not tell a female anything about his physical health. However, there's these two types of waves. There's first broadcast waves, which are slow waves, which male will do in order to get the attention of a female. And then once he sees a female, he will do very, very quick waves to help draw her over. And then he will do a third type of wave, which is content-based, which will tell the female if he's fit or not. Some species will also use acoustic and vibrational signaling, which is basically while doing the wave, they will hit their claw against the ground, which will send out an acoustic noise as well as a vibrational signal throughout the substrate, which will lead the female to him in his burrow. What's also really interesting about this is that sometimes when a male is doing it in his burrow or near his burrow, the female can get a sense of what his burrow is like from the outside, which is really beneficial because then she doesn't need to enter the burrow and potentially be coerced into mating with an unfit male. It also saves her energy and not having to run across the sand to go inspect the burrow. Another thing that's really cool that 5 of the species do is waving in synchronicity, which is basically one male will start waving and then they will all hop on and they will all wave in sync to hopefully attract a female. Next, we'll talk about female mate choice. So females will mate for 2 reasons. One are direct benefits, which are non-genetic advantages a female gains. So these, for the most part, are safety. So if a female picks a male with a great burrow, then she's safe from the elements and she's safe from predators. The next are indirect benefits. So these are genetic advantages her offspring get. So this means if she mates with a fit male, that means that probably her offspring will have a good chance of also being fit. So female fiddler crabs are very choosy, and that is because they live in a 1-to-3 male to female ratio. So there's way more males than there are females, which means that she is able to choose the best one possible. So there is a very wide variety among the species of what they like and what they don't like. However, the one thing that is consistent with all fiddler crabs is that females prefer a male who has the highest vigor or the most intense wave display. And this is because it's an honest indicator of health. So if he's able to do a really, really quick waving, and he's able to do it for a long time, it probably means that he's really fit. Next is they also look for the size of his enlarged claw. And this is important because also a heavier claw makes it harder to do the waving display, which means he's probably more fit. However, bigger is not always better because, first of all, claw size is usually correlated with body size. And what a female looks for in a burrow especially is that it's a burrow that fits her. So what happens is males will build burrows that fit themselves, and females want burrows that fit them. So they will actually look for males with a similar body size to them, because females who live in burrows that are most adapt to their size actually incubate their eggs for longer, which means that their offspring have a higher chance of survival. So in species that use synchronous waves, females tend to choose the male who is a leader of the wave, which means the one that's maybe a millisecond or two right above or right before all the other ones. However, environmental changes might change these priorities of females. For instance, if females live in a very high predation environment, they might not pick the male across the sand who's doing the most intense display. They might pick the okay male who's closer to them. So they don't need to risk getting eaten by a bird, per se, by running across the substrate. So let's talk about the environmental and ecological influences. So the first main thing that needs to align for this courtship to occur is that the tide must be low. And this is because burrows need to be exposed for females to inspect them, and also females need to be able to move across the substrate. The next thing that needs to be possible is that the mating must occur at midday when females are able to see the waving display. It is seen in some species that really heavily rely on acoustic and vibrational signals that this does not need to happen. However, for the most part, it does occur at midday due to evolutionary biases. It is also, some species are even so advanced that they're able to know what time of day is best, or what time of midday is best to do the waving display, when the sun's contrast best amplifies their claw. And then also there's temperature. So for most physiology, you want warmer is better. However, extreme temperatures reduce the waving activity. So these three things, tide, light, temperature, needs to all perfectly align, enable for this courtship to continue. The next thing that's really important is biotic factors. So as you can see, the large, bright yellow claw, as seen through this image, is great because it attracts females. It also attracts birds. It's not very conspicuous, so birds are able to detect it. And what they found in high predation environments is that females leave the burrows less often, which means males will do less waving displays, and males also build less pillars, which we discussed about the burrow displays. So overall, less courtship in high predation environments. There's also anthropogenic factors, which are an emerging study. Mostly coastal development degrades the soil, which leads to poor burrow quality. There's also anthropogenic noise, which masks the male signal detectability, which disrupts courtship. And then there's poor habitat quality, which all in all lowers courtship activities and causes females to have different priorities. So in summary, I hope you saw that fiddler crab courtship is an example of how sexual selection shapes both behavior and morphology. It also shows that males are reliant on visual displays as well as burrow construction to signal their fitness and attract females. I talked about how females evaluate these traits to secure both direct and indirect benefits from males, as well as the choosiness of female choice, and they are highly selective and rely on multiple criteria to choose which male is best. And then finally, we touched on the ecological and environmental pressures that influence these courtship behaviors. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed learning about courtship display in fiddler crabs.